Hello everybody, I'm George from Ireland. So this is a video about the Beara Peninsula. So here I am in Beara, County Cork. So Cork is the largest county in Ireland in area, but we're not the largest in population. We've got about 10% of the Irish population. And when I say Ireland, I'm not using it as a pars pro toto synecdoche. Look in the whole of Ireland. Anyway, so we're in the very west of Cork, and this is Bantry Bay, because if you go that away to the east, or northeast, you get to Bantry, the town which lends its name to the bay, one of the largest natural harbours in the world. So a very coveted haven. And we were part of the United Kingdom until 1921, and pursuant to the treaty of that year, the Royal Navy was allowed to remain in Bearhaven indefinitely, because Castletownbere is just a few kilometres to the east here, but the full name is Castletownbere. You can call it Castletownbere, occasionally call it Bearhaven if you really want to emphasise it as a port. And over here is Bear Island, spelled B-E-R-E, named after a Spanish princess who came, I suppose this is a dowry, many centuries ago. So it's 11 kilometres long. It's the largest island off the coast of Ireland, but it's barely a kilometre wide in places. So there's Ardnakinna at one end of the island, Lone Hort Point at the other. There's Rarin just across there. You can see so there are two ferries, one from Castletownbere Golf Course, Furious Pier. Over here, you can see it actually there. You can see the blue ferry, and one from the centre of Castletownbere towards the west end of the island. So beyond that is the open sea. That's the Atlantic Ocean. Or if you bear this way to the end of the island and then turn left around again, you get to the open sea. You can see another peninsula beyond. On a very clear day, you can see another peninsula beyond that. So the next peninsula's got Sheep's Head at the end. It's not as long or as wide as the Beara Peninsula. So we border County Kerry, and indeed we're in the Diocese of Kerry, because the ecclesiastical and the political boundaries don't quite coincide. They're often Kerry priests who are ministering to the spiritual needs of congregations here. So we're quite close to the Healy Pass, named after the renowned 19th century politician Tim Healy. Was a local boy from Bantry. Latterly, he was the first Governor General of the Irish Free State, as we were. Anyway, so the Royal Navy was allowed to stay here, as I said, but they had some facilities on Bear Island, the extreme east end of the island they had, for example, and was fenced off, the barbed wire around there, and then in September 1938, just as the Munich negotiations were going on about the absorption of the Sudetenland into Germany, the United Kingdom bizarrely agreed that they would cede it, and we could have it, despite ERA, as we called ourselves then, the Irish state, giving no concessions whatsoever, not even renouncing the claim to the north. So that was game, set, match to Eamon de Valera, the Taoiseach at the time. If you're not Irish, you won't know who that is, the Prime Minister at the time. And Churchill said it was a complete calamity, because the UK was enfeebling itself at a time of raised tensions with Germany, the run-up to the First World War. So because of the sort of Western approaches. So since the 1880s, the Royal Navy had been here, and this was to control part of the Atlantic, but they'd given it up. The pubs over there used to do well at them. Here on the mainland, what's now Castletownbere Golf Course, that was a Royal Naval facility. You'll see huge concrete emplacements, and that's where they had oil tanks. The Admiral's House is now Waterfall House, which is about 2 kilometres that away, owned by Neil Jordan, the celebrated film director. And so, yeah, that golf course was founded there about 1988 on formerly Royal Naval facility. And there at Furious Pier, there in about May 1921, the IRA, they shot dead, I think it was 5 British soldiers. One of them was a Private Chalmers. They were all unarmed. It's mentioned in Tom Barry's book, Guerrilla Days in Ireland. He doesn't point out the soldiers not carrying weapons at the time, because despite this irregular conflict raging in Ireland, a lot of British soldiers went off duty, went around in uniform, but without carrying any weapons, which was very injudicious to say the least. But because some IRA men had been executed by firing squad, the IRA said, if you do that, the gloves are off, armed or unarmed. All members of the Crown Forces will be considered fair game, and the IRA carried through that threat There was another engagement just outside Castletown Bear that day between, I think it was the Royal Irish Constabulary, as in the police, and the IRA. Although there were no casualties, no wounded even on either side on that occasion. So what else about this place? Obviously there's Dursey Island, which got the only cable car in Ireland. There's a waterfall close to here, which is the highest waterfall in Ireland. Dursey Island, I don't think is inhabited anymore. It was until just a few decades ago. Not many people know this, but the site of a horrific massacre in the 17th century, where the English army killed a couple of hundred civilians at the time of the Cromwellian Wars. Anyway, there's Dunboy Castle, as in like Yellow Fort, not very far away, just to the west of Castletown Bear. That's where the O'Sullivan Bear had his base. He'd had to retreat all the way to County Longford right at the start of the 17th century. He'd been defeated by Elizabeth I's forces. You can follow the trail that he took when he had led this fighting retreat. What else? Then this wealthy landowning family, the Puxleys, they later built a stately home near the ruin, and that was burnt down in 1920 because during the conflict at the outside of the 20th century, the Crown forces, if there'd been an ambush or something, they would suspect that the local people had at least connived with this. Okay, local people might have had some knowledge. They didn't tip off the Crown forces, but it wasn't worth your life to do so, because if the IRA found out you're passing information to the Crown forces, you would probably be killed. You might be let off with a severe beating, exile from Ireland for life, and all your goods would be forfeit. It's not that they necessarily were on the side of the IRA, though the IRA were quite popular around here, and there were some people who were neutral or ambivalent. But anyway, so the Crown forces would sometimes burn houses in reprisal of people they presumed to be Republican sympathisers, and the IRA decided that they would retaliate, and people they suspected of being Unionists, as in wanting Ireland to remain in union with Great Britain, would have their houses burnt. Now these people were usually wealthy Protestants, so a lot of our architectural patrimony was razed to the ground by the IRA at this time, including Puxley's Castle, and it remained a shell for many, many years. About 2008, people tried to rebuild it and turn it into a luxury hotel, but then the credit crunch came. We were NAMA land, NAMA as a National Assets Management Agency, and I don't think the work's ever been finished. So other things you can see over there on Bear Island, you'll see some Martello towers atop the summits of the various hills. So in the late 18th century, the Napoleonic Wars broke out. Ireland, because we were connected to Great Britain, we were at war against revolutionary France, and there's one on that highest point in Bear Island. You can probably scarcely make it out with the naked eye. It's bricked up, so you can't get inside it because it wouldn't be very structurally sound. Anyway, it's because there was some Italian island with such a sturdy tower like that, the Royal Navy had a real difficulty taking. So then this scheme came that all around the coast of the British Isles, these Martello towers would be constructed, supposedly impregnable in case the French invaded. And of course, in 1796, they attempted that. So Theobald Wolfe-Tone, a member of the United Irishmen, revolutionary, gone to France in league with them. He sailed here with a French fleet, and they tried to land, but there was a very fierce tempest blowing against them, and they were unable to make land. He said that they got to near, where is it, further up here, I can't remember the townland, a bit further east of here, and he said, we were so close you could almost spat onto the land. He fulminated, England has had not such an escape since the Armada, and it was just this unfavourable wind, countervailing wind, which prevented the French fleet and the United Irishmen from landing in 1796. But local loyalists, they raised hue and cry. They were ready, they're very aware, very vigilant and nervous. But anyway, the landing didn't take place in the end. One of the French ships foundered here in Bantry Bay, and then it was raised to the surface decades ago. I can't, what was called, is it La Surveillante? Obviously, 2 years later, in 1798, the rising took place that May into that June. The French did arrive under Lazare Hoche, but too late, landing at Mayo. Had some successes at the so-called Ballonard races, but eventually defeated because they hadn't managed to time it to coordinate with the United Irishmen's insurrection. Anyway, so that's probably enough from me. A little bit about Beara, this fascinating peninsula. Here it is, very misty. Hungry Hill is the highest mountain around, and I've heard people call it, Knockdowd, Hungry Hill, something to do with the famine. I'm not sure if that's true or not. Sometimes it's capped in snow in midwinter, and it's enshrouded in mist at the moment, but this is an area of the most exceptionally luxuriant verdure, and it's very well watered throughout much of the year. The sea is quite placid now. It's never absolutely flat calm, though you can have the most ferocious storms brewed up in winter in particular. Sometimes there were power outages, things like that. So please subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and so forth. What else? So donations of the greatest possible munificence are warmly appreciated. You can donate to me at georgecallahan79@gmail.com. So Callahan being spelled Callaghan, because some of our American brethren, they drop the G because they like to spell phonetically. And what else could I say about things like that? Yeah. So anyway, comments on a postcard. All right. Goodbye.